In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you why gentle parenting hacks, breathing exercises, and simply trying harder isn't stopping you from reacting to your kids in ways that could be potentially damaging your relationship with them. And we're going to install something that actually will. Hi, my name is Freeman, and for the last 5 years, I've been studying and coaching people on positive psychology and stress management tools. Now, unfortunately, none of this helped me when I needed it the most because I was missing one crucial piece. Now, this is something I'm going to break down in this exact video. Let me explain. I never set out to be a coach. I actually started as a whitewater rafting guide, and it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I shifted into user experience design. Now, this is where I actually became obsessed with why we think the way that we do. I started sharing what I was learning, all the positive psychology, all the stress management, neuroscience stuff. I started sharing this through daily posts online. I wrote a newsletter. I made a podcast. And as I was doing this, people started to reach out to me. They said, Freeman, can you help me with XYZ? Can you make this part better? And so without even realizing I was doing it, I started coaching people. Now, I was coaching them in the usual way, the way that you probably think about coaching. I'd help people create positive habits. I'd help them look at their day and see where they could improve because I really believed that daily habits, the right rituals, these were the things that helped solve the problems. This is what made things easier. And you would think that with all of that knowledge, I'd be pretty well set up for becoming a dad. But I wasn't. Because I know now I was missing a huge piece of the puzzle. So despite seeing myself as somebody who is patient, despite people telling me, oh, you're very grounded, very calm individual, when I had my kid, I would find myself absolutely losing my shit. I mean, I would throw things, I would slam doors, hit walls, all the things that you don't really want to see yourself doing. It was like watching somebody else controlling my body from the outside, and I hated it. I can still remember the time I slammed something down on the counter so hard, and I looked over and I could see the fear in my toddler's eyes. It's a memory I'll probably never forget. And what just made it worse is that all the things that I'd been studying and literally teaching people to do, none of them were helping me in the moments when I really needed them to. All those breathing exercises just fell to the wayside. All those frameworks, gone. I would react before I could even think about all these great things that I was telling people to do, before I could engage any of these little tactics that I thought were the answer. And I'll be honest, I felt incredibly lost. I felt ashamed. I felt like a fraud. Like I was the person who was supposed to have all these answers, and somehow I couldn't apply any of them, even when they would help save the most important relationship in my entire life. And then worse, everywhere I looked for answers, I saw all the same things. I saw people saying, just try harder, be more disciplined. If you're not changing, it's because you don't care enough. It's because you don't care enough? I don't care enough about the relationship with my son. I couldn't believe that was the answer. It just made me feel worse. Like maybe that was the answer. I got to the point where I was walking around messaging ChatGPT at like 2 o'clock in the morning on sleepless nights because I didn't know what else to look for. And this wasn't just affecting my relationship with my son. It was affecting my parenting, my work, my relationship with my wife. Now, fortunately, my wife had been spending a whole bunch of time learning about NLP and hypnosis. Now, NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. It's basically the science of how we use language to talk with your subconscious mind. And she encouraged me to sign up to take one of these courses. But when that time finally came, I didn't want to go. And it was because the timing just felt awful. I had stopped coaching. My wife was dealing with her own mental struggles. I'd even gone back to painting houses just so we could pay our bills. It felt like I was holding everything together, and if I flew across the country to do this dumb course, everything was going to fall apart. But I'd already booked the plane ticket. I'd already paid for the Airbnb. I'd already put down the money to take the course. So reluctantly, I got in my car and I flew across the country, not in my car, but I flew across the country to take this course. Now, I'll never forget what my mentor said on the very first day of that course. He said, "Some of you may not have wanted to come, You may have felt like the timing was wrong, felt like maybe you should push this off and do it another time. But there is a reason that you showed up here today. And this is going to sound cliche, but that week changed my entire life. But it wasn't really until I was driving home from the airport that it really hit me. I really realized what I was going to do with all this information that I just learned. It hit me with so much clarity that I had to actually pull over on the side of the road and just absorb and think about the epiphany I just had. I needed to help dads understand this because dads need this. Because there's a whole generation of men like myself who have the incredible opportunity now to be more present, more there with our kids than ever before. But we were never given a playbook with what to do and how to do that type of work. Society no longer needed us to be the breadwinners, which is incredible and a much needed change. But our entire generation, the majority of males before us, had gone off to war or they'd worked all the time. They were only around in small bits. We were even told that as males, we were allowed two emotions, right? We could be happy or we could be angry. We were told things that like men don't cry and toughen up and get it done. Generations of conditionings of this was now working against us and how we showed up for our kids. It's no wonder that male suicide rates are absolutely skyrocketing. I felt so driven to help with this. Especially because as you look at one of the most popular methods, the most popular ways to deal with these types of deep-rooted issues, you run into things like talk therapy. Now, unfortunately, talk therapy is designed against many of the ways the male brains actually work. Instead, what do we get fed? We get fed hustle culture. We get fed man up and do it. Just work harder, get it done. Now, since that moment on the highway, I've invested over $10,000 and hundreds of hours into advanced NLP and hypnosis training. But more importantly, I've completely transformed the way I show up as a father. Today, I have the privilege of helping dads who feel overwhelmed, who feel reactive, who feel stuck, and not by giving them more surface level tools to just try to use, because those tools rely on willpower. And there's a reason that willpower doesn't work in these scenarios. So before we get there, I need you to understand something. I need you to understand what's actually happening inside of your brain in those trigger moments. Let me actually show you what I mean. Let me grab my whiteboard here. So here's something that nobody tells you, okay? And once you see what I'm about to show you, you cannot unsee it, all right? And if you've made it this far in the video, this next thing right here is probably going to change things for you drastically. So most dads think that the problem comes from a trigger. Something external happens. Maybe the kids don't listen anymore. Maybe they've broken something. Maybe you're trying to get their attention, right? Something happens externally. And then you react in a certain way. And then you try to change or manage that reaction that you're having. The problem is those types of triggers, what triggers you, A, you have no control over them. And B, they're going to keep changing. All right. And worse, if you're trying to change your reaction once you're already there, it's kind of like trying to put out a fire that's already started. Okay, it's very hard to change your reaction to something after your brain has processed and moved to what it's doing. So here's what's really going on inside of your brain. So you have the trigger, the external event that happens. Again, this is something your kids are doing, something externally happens. And then we think this happens and it causes us to have an outcome. Now, this isn't necessarily a good outcome. This could be a bad outcome. This could be something that we're doing. We think this is it. In reality, there are two things happening deep inside of your brain that you're not even aware of, and they're happening in seconds, so fast that you're not consciously aware that it happens. What happens is something happens. We then have an internal thought inside of our head. So a thought goes through our head. That thought causes us to feel something. We then have a feeling, and then we do something. But we're not even aware of these other two steps. This whole thing happens so quickly that by the time you are yelling, throwing something, slamming the door, your brain's already gone through the other two steps. It's an automatic sequence, okay? And it fires in many things. Our brain does this in almost every single moment of our life, okay? Here's the really important thing. Most dads identify with this behavior on the end, right? They say, I am somebody who yells at my kids. I am somebody who gets angry easily. I'm an impatient person. They make it part of their identity. but you're not being angry. You're doing anger. There's a pattern running in the background that produces that behavior. And the cool thing about these patterns is they can be changed. So when you shift from I am to I do, everything opens up. Because if you're doing it, then you can do something different. You can choose a different internal thought, which is going to create a different feeling, which produces a different outcome. And I'm not just going to leave you with the explanation of this. We're going to do it right here, right now on the video. All right. So what happens? What is an outcome? What is a thing you do, a behavior that you don't appreciate? This is probably going to come pretty quick to you. That's the outcome. All right. Maybe it's yelling at your kid. Maybe it's, throwing your hat across the room or slamming a door, whatever it is. So now that you have that outcome, all right, I want you to think about what you were feeling right before that. So right before you yelled, right before you slammed the door, what were you feeling before you did that thing? Maybe it was anxious, maybe it was angry, possibly even frightened. All right, there are no wrong answers to what you put in this box. Next thing, okay, what was the internal thought? If you were to know, what was the internal thought that you had that made you feel this way? After your kid said something, you had a thought. What was that thought that made you feel angry, anxious, frightened? Just whatever comes up first. Don't think about it too much. Maybe it was, how am I going to handle this? Or I can't handle this. For me, that's the internal thought that came up for me when I did this exercise for the first time. So you have an internal thought. The thought makes you feel, and the feeling drives to an outcome. The cool thing is we can change this, like I said, okay? And again, we're going to do this right now. So what outcome would you rather have? Instead of this, what would you rather do? Maybe you would rather hug your kids. Maybe you would rather react with a calm voice. Maybe you would rather take a step back physically. What feeling would drive that behavior? What feeling would you have to have inside that would cause you to do the new behavior? Maybe the feeling is calm. Maybe it's confident. Okay? And what would you have to say to yourself? What is the internal thought you would have to make you have this feeling and make you do that behavior? This is the whole game. Now when this trigger happens, you have this internal thought instead. You think this thing to yourself, thus you feel this way, thus you do this other behavior. That's the whole game. Okay? This is why it's so different than everything else that you've probably seen. You are always running a strategy. The difference is whether you choose a useful one or you keep doing the old one. Now, this is a structural change. This is how your brain actually processes things in a moment. And then the reason why willpower alone will not change this. The reason this doesn't work is because this whole chain runs well below the level of your conscious thinking. So think of it this way. It's one of my favorite metaphors. Russell Brunson actually describes it this way. He describes it as a monkey and an elephant. The monkey is our conscious brain. This is our logical, rational side. The monkey really believes that it's in charge. And the elephant is our subconscious. Everything that's running in the background of our brain. So if the elephant wants to go left, it goes left. The monkey might think it wants to go left or it wants to go a different way, but it doesn't matter because it's, as you're probably well aware, much smaller than the elephant. The monkey is simply along for the ride. So when you get triggered and try to breeze your way out of it or reach for one of those parenting tips that you saw on TikTok or Instagram, the monkey goes, I'm going to go do this thing. But the elephant has already taken off. It's already gone. Okay? It's already heading down the road to anger, to yelling, or to shutting down before the monkey even got a chance to take the reins. This is why none of that surface level stuff actually matters, because you're trying to redirect a massively moving elephant. Okay? It does not work. The solution is creating a new path for that elephant to follow. Now, the reason that these paths exist is because something happened. It learned something in your past. This is what we call significant emotional events. Moments from your past where something occurred and then a belief was formed. And from that day forward, the elephant has been walking down that path. It's walking where it believes it should be going. So I want you to think of it like this, okay? Let me get my whiteboard out again, because this is a visual piece. And once you see the visuals behind this, it'll make way more sense. So you can think about our values, our beliefs, and our behaviors as interacting within a web. So if in the top corner here, we have what we call our values, represented by the V, okay? Our values create our beliefs, okay? Represented by these capital B's. So we have a value. That value determines what we believe about ourselves. What we believe about ourselves is what creates our behaviors, represented by these small b's, okay? Every belief we have drives behaviors. And this is an incredibly logical concept, right? Because if you believe this, you will act in this way, right? If you believe you eat healthy, you will eat healthily. It's very logical when you see it like this. And I love this way. Most coaching attacks this from the wrong angle. It tries to change these behaviors, right? If you change enough of these, now this does work, to be fair. If you change enough of these behaviors for long enough, a belief will change, okay? But it's time consuming and it requires a ton of willpower. The far more effective way, all right, is to change your belief. Because when the belief changes, every behavior attached to that belief has to change automatically. It has to, because you're no longer this person. So you will not act in this way. If you're no longer an angry person, you will not do angry behaviors. It's just not possible. I want to make one thing clear here before we go on. This isn't about removing anger. All right. Every emotion has a purpose. Being angry means that you care deeply about something. If you didn't care about it, you wouldn't get angry about it. I'm not trying to turn you into a robot. The goal is to remove what we call unwarranted and unwanted levels of these emotions, the overreactions, the moments that make no sense in hindsight. That's what we're trying to get rid of. Now, I know what you're thinking. Freeman, this is starting to sound a lot like therapy. You want me to go back into past moments and re-go through them? There's some differences, and I want to make this really clear. What I'm talking about is content free. You don't have to tell me what happened. You already know what happened. And unlike talk therapy, which can take months or years of reprocessing the same events, this can work in weeks or even overnight. Because we're not processing those events endlessly. We're changing what you learned in those events. And we're giving the elephant a new belief and a new path to walk on. Now, I've bundled all of this into what I call the dad's playbook. It's 4 steps, and here's how it works. Step 1, again, we're going to discover that strategy that you're subconsciously running. This is what we just went through. Most guys have never looked at this. When you map it out like we just did today, it's quite eye-opening because you now realize that your reaction isn't just something that you are, it's something that you're doing, and you can choose to do something different. Step 2, we're going to change that limiting belief that's driving not only that behavior, but every behavior attached to it. Remember that most coaching attacks the behavior, hoping that by changing all of those behaviors, we will change the belief that's driving them. Together, we can change the belief and then watch as the behaviors completely fall away. Step 3, we're going to remove any unwarranted and unwanted levels of emotion. This is the step that, in my opinion, makes the biggest difference for most dads and most males, and it's one that I personally got the most change out of. Because here's the thing, right? For generations, we were taught to do what? To bottle up our emotions, to squash them down, to not feel them, right? Boys don't cry, just toughen up. And I tried this, and you're probably aware if you've tried this that it doesn't work, right? It's just like putting a Band-Aid over top of a wound, and eventually the wound festers over and explodes, and the Band-Aid didn't do you any good. Remember, the elephant walks a path because of an event that happened in your past, okay? Something happened, you formed a belief, and the elephant learned the route. Now, we can go back and help the elephant choose a different path, but not just for one emotion or for one strategy or for one belief, but for a whole bunch of them. Clearing strategies that you probably never even realized were in the way. And it's important to remember that I'm not saying we forget about these moments. I'm not saying we're going to move past them. I'm saying we're going to look at them as the you that you are now and choose what to believe about them. Because when you change what you believe about a moment or an event, the behaviors downstream will change automatically. When I work through my own unresolved anger, both internally and externally, I changed overnight. Not gradually, but in that moment, things were different. And step 4 is locking in the new version of yourself. Because all of the work that we did together doesn't stick if we don't lock it in. You've probably heard the saying, we are what we think, or you are what you think. Well, this is doubly or triply important for what your subconscious brain is thinking. When your subconscious brain can actually see and feel what your relationship with your kid will look like in 6 months from now, what your kids are going to say about you, what it feels like to be the dad you actually want to be. When you create that vision and you lock it in place, you're changing the way that you think about your future at a subconscious level. And then the things that you look for, the things that you do will begin to change. Now, this isn't complicated. There's no massive stack of tools, all right, that you need to memorize. I don't want to add anything to your plate with this. We're going to be working with your brain instead of forcing and trying to change the way that you behave. Now, I want to take a couple seconds here and just quickly show you what some other people that I've worked with are saying. I'm not going to bore you with any of this. I'm just going to quickly go through some of the ones that I like the most. So I got to do a lunch and learn for a group of lawyers, and Matthew Korn said that the presentation was incredibly helpful for him in controlling his emotions in the moment. Now, this was just a presentation that I did. Chasen as well said he would highly recommend Freeman and was surprised by how well this system actually works. The mindset shift was huge. I got to work with Melissa, who was trying to navigate a decision. She had 2 different options. Now, I didn't need to know what those options were. Again, I just helped her walk through them. I helped her find calm and clarity that was totally unexpected for her after the end of just a single session. Karen Cooper even said that it was life-altering. And this is coming from somebody who's a mindset coach themselves. Now, there are more of these. You can go look at them. They're on my website at freemanbeals.com/start here. I'm not going to bore you with them all here. Now, if any of the stuff I've described, if you've recognized yourself anywhere in here, I want to invite you just to jump on a quick call with me. The link will be right below this video. It's a 30-minute conversation. There's no pressure. We'll talk through where you're at, the steps you need to make, and we'll explore together whether this process is the right fit for you or not. Whether you work with me or not, I want you to leave knowing the exact steps, the ones that are actually going to help you to get to where you want to be. And my goal is simple. I want you to get one real win. One moment where you would have blown up and instead you didn't. Because when that happens, everything changes. You stop waiting for the next shoe to drop and you start actually trusting yourself in those moments that matter the most. That's when all this begins to feel real and achievable. And that's what I want for you. So click the link and book the call. Now, before you go, if you only take one thing from this video, one thing, I want it to be this. I want you to know that the reason most dads fail to stop the reactions that they're having that are damaging their relationships with their kids is because they're desperately trying to put out a fire instead of doing the work that would make it so that the fire never started in the first place. That's the whole thing. That's the big difference. Everything else in this video is the how to make that happen. The link is below. Do yourself a favor, book the call, and I'll see you there.